I tried Hollow Knight when it first came out back in February, and I liked what I played, but I soon came to a point, as I do with many Metroidvania games, where I couldn't figure out the path to progression. Sure enough, I gave up on it and didn't return until just last week. So now I've played over 20 hours in the space of 7 days, I think I should talk about why. While 20 hours might not seem that much to some of you, for me that's an enormous amount of time to dedicate to one game. As you may be aware, I'm known for jumping from game to game, usually only being able to give a solid first impression. A game holding my interest while so many others continue to release is a rare thing these days. I still need to go back and finish Horizon Zero Dawn, Resident Evil 7 and Persona 5 just to name a few. So how did this little indie title captivate me so much upon my return? Well, if you've seen my last video, you know that I've been in a rough place recently. Depression is tough to live with and fight against every day. The primary feelings it can bring you is a sense of hopelessness, a lack of purpose, and no real drive to do anything, including playing video games. Making videos and music recently came about from my increasingly passionate feelings towards the medium, and the fact that I could actually listen to music because it didn't require doing much. Then Summer Games Done Quick started and my interest in gaming went up again. Seeing that Hollow Knight was already being speedrun so soon after its initial release made me more interested in how the game was put together so that it could be beaten in the space of less than an hour. Watching the start of the run was enough to make me turn it off, fearing spoilers, launch the game and figure out how to progress. It didn't help that I hadn't equipped the compass charm, so my confusion upon returning was only furthered, but upon seeing Hornet dash away I knew I was on the right track. Obviously this is a technique used in plenty of games to give the player an indication that they're making progress, but the fact that she specifically dashed told me that I was on the track to gain my next ability. My main problem with the start of Hollow Knight was the slow movement, so the thought that that was about to be fixed really pushed me on. After defeating Hornet in a damn satisfying boss fight, I got the ability, and my hope that the game had more to offer was proven correct, and it only got better from there on. Suddenly, the pacing of the game was amped up considerably. There were new environments, enemies, bosses at every turn, always something to hold my attention, and my curiosity was tapped into in a way that it hadn't been since Ori and the Blind Forest and Dark Souls. The latter is unfortunately a comparison the game can't escape and I can't not touch on. I know the Souls games have had a huge impact and people are probably tired of hearing every game, even Crash Bandicoot for fuck's sake, compared to them, but Hollow Knight is one which borrows heavily to still make something all its own. It only takes what it needs and not what wouldn't work, like stamina for example. You've got the death mechanic causing you to lose all of your currency and having to return back to where you died to get it, risking losing it forever on the way. Although in this instance you actually have to fight your shadow to get it back. It's a neat twist on a now common trope, and while a shadow isn't that hard of a fight, it provides just that extra bit of tension that you might need. Soul is essentially mana generated by hitting enemies, an ingenious design which means you'll either be finding money or legitimately useful items rather than getting excited over a simple health pack. When you're low on health, you either need to avoid all the enemies in hopes of making it to the next resting spot, or fight them head on and avoid getting hit so you can make use of soul to replenish your precious health. The fact that health is represented in increments of masks rather than a bar means that even the smallest obstacles are capable of doing substantial damage. One hit is still 1/5 of your health. When you die, the amount of soul you can carry is halved, making survival that much harder when you can heal an attack from a distance far less than you would otherwise be able to. This is a similarly brutal adoption of what Demon's Souls attempted by halving the health of its hollowed players, except they've smartly integrated it with their own mechanic to make it less punishing, but enough that you desperately want your shadow back. The melancholic feel and atmosphere throughout Hollow Nest is the final Souls inspiration I'd like to touch on. You may think, how could such a dim, depressing game actually help with your depression? Much in the same way Dark Souls can, Hollow Knight provides many wonderful challenges to overcome, which can make you feel legitimately good about yourself. There were multiple times where I just couldn't believe that I actually beat a boss. I didn't expect to on that try, or I thought that I was doing really poorly, but I just ended up beating it, and that shock and surprise is a fantastic feeling that games can give you. But beyond that, there's this semblance of hope carried over from the Souls games. The dark atmosphere and backstory serve to make the hopeful and charming characters stand out much more, and they do stand out more here than they would in Dark Souls because, despite the ruin around them, they're making their way through life by selling, adventuring, or helping in various ways, with many of them encouraging you on your journey in the same way. It becomes infectious. You want to overcome the challenges set before you because you want to see what lies ahead, what characters you might bump into again and again, and what fascinating areas you can venture through. This charm wouldn't be as prevalent if it wasn't for the incredible art style, which makes it much more instantly lovable than Dark Souls, for example. So much character is conveyed in only a few animations and poses, and even though most of the characters have masks on, you can kind of get a sense for what they're feeling. It's all hand drawn and absolutely gorgeous, plus it runs in well over 60 FPS, a rarity when developers go for such art styles, but one that's really appreciated by me personally. While I've not played too many of them, I've found that Metroidvanias are a perfect kick back and chill out genre for me, and that's why getting into a new one that I adore this much was so heartening. Similar to what happened with Ori and the Blind Forest, I just didn't want to stop playing. There's always something to discover. Just look at this map. There's always tiny bits poking out of previously explored areas, letting you know that there's still more to do. This makes backtracking actually enjoyable. Most of the time I was just debating where I wanted to go next, since there were so many choices. There were times in which I went to one of these points and still didn't have the ability I needed to continue, and that broke up the pacing considerably. But thanks to the small hints on the map as to where I hadn't ventured, I always knew of some place, at least one, that might hold progression, making it flow far better than most of the Metroidvanias. Most important of all is the fact that it's just you and the game with very little interruption, allowing me to comfortably put on a few YouTube videos, maybe a Netflix show on my second monitor, and kill two birds with one stone. While you can argue I'm not experiencing the game properly, I'm not being as sucked into the tone and atmosphere as I could be, but the fact is that if this game blended into the background and became some monotonous task while I binged on TV shows, then I wouldn't be making this video. There were times that I actually had to pause whatever I was watching to just listen to the amazing soundtrack, or I stumbled on an area that I thought was gorgeous, and especially combined with the music that was playing at the time, I had to soak it all in. And that's the mark of something truly special. It was nice to have something to look forward to when coming home, something I knew I wanted to do that wasn't just lie around watching stuff. I'm sure it's not the most productive thing, but it feels like that's what matters when you're in a depressed headspace. Anything that gets you to do something, no matter what it is vital to getting to that point where you are being productive. I mean, I wouldn't be making this video and you wouldn't be hearing me right now if it wasn't for Hollow Knight. While I think Hollow Knight is a truly incredible game, the way it's helped me and my mental health is applicable to numerous games for many people. This video isn't me saying if you're depressed then play Hollow Knight, it'll solve all your problems. I believe that games are an amazing way for people to cope with depression and anxiety. If you're in a bad spot, try to find your Hollow Knight, something that you can invest time into. It doesn't have to be a game. Anything you're able to be passionate about to distract you for a time until your brain sorts itself out can be a great tactic. As time passes, things become better. That might not feel like the case right now, but believe me, it's true. Some things take longer than others. I'm still working through mine, but I know I'll get there at some point. And that real progress, I feel, has started with Hollow Knight. So thank you, Team Cherry, for a beautiful game. I can't wait to see what you do next.